You are now tuned in to Mr. Terry TV.
I'm saying, blind and bullshit, baby. Let's go. Step in the spot, all eyes on me. I don't need to see, just let the vibe believe. Cane in my hand, but my bag on swole. Confidence dripping, I'm solid. I'm gold, and we don't chase no man. We just chase them bands. If you hate it, understand. I was bougie for the gram. I'm blind and bougie, yeah, we lit tonight. We don't need no eyes, just to shine as bright. Blind and bougie, we gon' flex, we gon' glow. If you know, then you know. If you don't, then go, 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 go. Gloss on my lips, heels clicking the floor.
What up, everybody? It's your main man, Mr. Terry Thomas. And I had to come back with you. It's been a long time, and I should not have left you without something to step to. So today, we're going to do it just like we do on Mr. Terry TV. Sometimes hard-hitting and controversial. We're going to hit you today with that Surviving Criss Cole, that heavily anticipated Zoë Jones Walton interview. We finally got a female's perspective on being black, blind, at Criss Cole, giving her story. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, Terry, are you still doing that Surviving Criss Cole stuff?" And I said, "Yes, of course. Of course I am." So she wanted to get on here and let y'all know her story and warn the people about her experience at Criss Cole. So what we gonna do right now is we are going to take a quick commercial break. So grab your favorite drink, grab your favorite snack, kick your feet up, and it's time to relax because you're now tuned in to Mr. Terry TV. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to jump into this interview.
What get watches? Please make it fit. Curves that don't quit. Because she got that wagger. She got that wagger.
Are you tired of one-night regrets? Ready to settle down and be a household man? Introducing Wifey Vision, the AI truth checker for hearts and halos. We don't judge by filters, we detect character. From cookouts to first dates, Wifey Vision helps you spot a queen worth bringing home. Because love might be blind, but you don't have to be. Disclaimer: side effects may include laughter, confidence, and haters catching feelings. All parody products created and produced by Terry Thomas, the original Mr. Friendly.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Zoe?
Hey, Terry. What's going on?
I just wanted to tap in with you about this Surviving Criss Cole interview. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so if you would, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Zoë Jones Walton. Yeah, it's going to be right there.
All right, cool. So tell us a little bit about your blindness situation. How did you start losing your vision?
Okay. So I didn't know I was born with this condition, but I have retinitis pigmentosa. I didn't find out about it until 2020. But I didn't start to lose vision until the end of 2022. And it started with my right eye. As far as what I can see now, how I describe it, everything is just blurry. My left eye is the one I still have like a little bit of vision in, but not much. And glasses do kind of help when I'm reading things up close, but other than that, is just a blurry world for me.
Okay. So, what was your journey to Criss Cole like? Did you? I know when I talk to a lot of people, they say they didn't even know anything about the blind community at all, or like since we live in Texas, they didn't know anything about like Texas Workforce Commission, getting a counselor, or anything like that.
Right, yeah. I had no idea about anything in the blind community. I got connected to TWC when I was still living in Arlington. And then I got a job out in Austin, and that's what made me move to Austin. And that's, during that time, that's when my vision was getting worse. And thankfully, my job was very supportive in helping me trying to get resources, because I was like, I don't know anything. And it was a tour that I went on at the Lighthouse down in Austin. And the guy who was touring and showing me all the equipment and technology, he told me about Criss Cole, and he was like, yeah, it's like the best thing that ever happened. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what does it consist of? And he's like, well, they teach you all these things, teach you how to use a cane, because I didn't even know how to use my cane right at that time. And he was like, they teach you, life skills and all these things. So I was like, okay, well, let me look into it. And then I did a tour maybe a few months later, and then put in my application, and I started going to Criss Cole May 2024.
Okay, so you're almost coming up on your 2-year mark, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I want to touch on something real quick, real fast, because you said you were working before. So was it difficult working with the condition that you didn't even know that you had at the time?
Oh yeah. Like before I moved to Austin, and the vision loss started, I was working for a company called Fidelity Investments as a background investigator. And we had to, my job was looking up people's degrees and making sure that their degrees were legit. And we had to knock out so many people per day. And it became to the point where I couldn't meet the quota. And there was like a 6-month like probationary period, and they were kind of just like, yeah, we're not gonna fire you because because that would be like against the law to fire you, but we're not gonna rehire you. And I was just like, but then I got the job down in Austin, and they were working with me through the vision loss. So a lot of that job was like public policy. A lot of reading and writing. And it made it difficult to read the different bills. And we were like trying to figure out how to use narrator on Word, and I didn't know anything about JAWS. I was just like, I don't know what I need. So it was a challenge for sure.
Okay. See, I like to get a little bit of background first, so then we can jump right into the Criss Cole stuff. See, now, so this is very important, going from a person that didn't know that they had an eye condition, and then it just kind of falls out of the sky on you, and then your life is turned upside down.
Right.
So, with that being said, when you went on your tour of Criss Cole, what was your impression?
I really liked the engagement. Like, I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm not being judged. Like, ain't nobody, because that was like a thing for me. Like, I was worried about people looking at me using a cane, and I was like embarrassed that I even had to use a cane. And I was just like, everyone is so welcoming and opening here. And I was excited. Like, I had a good tour. I met like some really cool people on my tour. So my initial impression was, oh, this is gonna be a great place. Like I feel good about what will come of this.
Okay. I think we were all of that same accord. When we first went on a tour and everything like that. And I definitely remember you. Because of course you had the amazing Lauren Jones giving you the tour. So that was my first impression. So I would say, okay, well let's go from your tour to when you got there. What would you say was your impression your first day?
First day, it was definitely a little nerve wracking. It was like a lot, but it was like a lot. I was excited because I had really kind of sheltered and isolated myself a little bit because I was just like, I'm scared to fall or run into things. So I kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we went out somewhere the first day, and it was just like so cool to have like a circle of people who were blind too and weren't scared to go out. And I remember like this wasn't the first day, but I think this was like maybe with the first week or two. I had made it across the street to what's that place called? Tropical Smoothie. I made it over there by myself. I was so proud. I was like, oh my gosh, I did this by myself. And that just like boosted my confidence. So like at first, there was a lot of confidence boosting for me that happened.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful experience, and a lot of people, I don't think they take into account number one, how it can be going from the sighted world to the blind world. I know that's very devastating within itself, but I would say also, I think a lot of people discount the small things that when you feel like when you gain your independence that you can do alone, how much of a confidence boost that can be. And something as simple as some people would say, oh, you're proud of crossing the street. Well, have you ever done it blind, right?
Right.
So I think I would ask next, I would say, because, when you reached out, you said you wanted to tell people about your experience and you wanted to warn people, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about the good. I want to do a compliment sandwich. Let's talk about the good. Then we're going to talk about the bad. And then what we're going to talk about is what do you think could be improved on?
Okay.
So continuing with the good, what would you say was your best experience at Criss Cole, and what would you say your favorite class or instructor was at Criss Cole?
I had a couple of different favorites. Miss Stacy, she was in the life skills at first, and then they ended up moving her to I think like Braille and deaf, the deaf classes. She was just really good at making sure like you were connected to Texas Talking Books and having like Braille dots and having like your recorder and all the like little necessities in your home. And she was just real cool and funny and laid back. She wasn't really tripping about too much. And it was like she just really understood. That's what I really liked about Miss Stacy. I really liked Justice. I can't think of his last name, but Justice, he was my Braille teacher. He was real cool, laid back, and we had like a lot of conversations that just really made me feel heard and understood about everything I was dealing with during that time. And he was just like very patient, and a place that I could go to when I just felt overwhelmed. And then my favorite class would definitely have to be IA, Industrial Arts. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on their names. With I can remember their faces. Oh, I can't think of their names.
I think you're thinking of Teacher Kurt, Teacher Burton, Teacher Marielle.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. That class, I was just able to let my hair down and be my goofy, kind of wild, crazy self. I extended my time in that class as much as I could. And it was just like really fun in that class. And I think a lot of other students felt the same way. I would definitely say those would come like my favorites as far as classes go.
Okay. And I would like to, shout out the good ones. I would like to shout out Miss Stacy Parker and the DLS. I think
DLS,
yeah, Stacy Parker was definitely. I had the honor and privilege of having two good DLS teachers. I had Miss Faruta and Miss Stacy Parker. So shout out to both of you two ladies. And I would say shout out to Justice. I would like to say, shout out to my New York brother and peace God.
Yeah.
Always dapper, dressed, intelligent black man, and I enjoyed Justice. And shout out to the IA team. I know, they switched up some teachers in there, but shout out to Teacher Kurt, Burt, and Teacher Marielle. I think she's in DLS right now. But okay, all right. So we're continuing on the good. Would you say that you formed some positive relationships at Criss Cole as far as student-wise?
Oh yeah, definitely formed some bonds that I still even keep to this day, like Miss Lauren Jones. Even though Kay, we had our little whatever, we're still cool. We're friends to this day. Who else? You, of course, Cole, Matlock, Anthony. There's a few people that I've stayed connected to. And even like I had, what was her name? It was someone I met at the end of my time at Criss Cole. I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she had ended up calling me. This was probably like back in November, and it just felt good to have someone think about you and, relate. And we were just talking about, being back into the sighted world and how that adjustment has been. So definitely like the community that I've gotten from Criss Cole is a positive. I can't take that away from them at all.
Okay. Well, we're touching on that. I know you said you kind of before going, I know you said you kind of isolated yourself, secluded yourself from people. So was that a big change for you to let those walls down and let people in and develop any friendships or associations?
Yeah, I mean, I am a pretty social person, but it definitely changed going blind. I'm a little bit more vigilant and just cautious because I feel like I have to be around people I can trust with just like me physically. And a lot of people don't know how to engage with blind folks. And a lot of times I'm the first for people. And so it kind of just it's like a whole process. It's like a whole learning. And everybody doesn't have the same reactions either. Most of the time people are helpful. But other times people are kind of just like overbearing. And so like that's another thing that kind of makes me wary. But as far as engaging with people, I'm a bit more reserved than I used to be. But I definitely still love the social connection as much as possible. And I know that like whenever I am in like a blind community, I'm flourishing. Like I'm trying to, hi, I'm Zoe, what's your name? So yeah, there's definitely a difference.
Okay. Well, I think with that being said, you touched on something and something that's very important, I would say, going along with the good and the bad, since you are a blind woman. So can you tell me, because we're going to touch on the bad, but we're going to stick on the good right now, but can you tell me, because you said you're hyper, being blind now or suffering some vision loss, you say you're hyper vigilant. So what would you say are the positives of that, going from somebody that has been sighted most of their life to someone that suffered vision loss? Do you feel like, you were vigilant before, or do you feel like now you do things that you probably wouldn't have done when you could see more?
That's a beautiful question. I definitely pay attention to my surroundings more now. I listen for like sound marks instead of landmarks, and I'm not as distracted compared to when I was sighted. When I was sighted, I can just go willy-nilly, and I'm like, okay. But now it's definitely like my first concern is like safety. Am I gonna fall? Am I gonna trip? Do I know where I am? I would say, as far as like engaging with people, it's kind of like a good gauge to know who I can and can't trust. Because usually, people who don't want anything to do with a blind person are not going to be helpful, and they'll kind of like stay out your way. And those who really want to have a connection with you and they kind of have to make that effort a bit. And I don't know, it's kind of like a gauge for me to be able to tell who I can and can't trust. And then even just trust, I look at that differently. Like, okay, I can trust you on a physical level to guide me or whatever case may be, but that's different emotionally or on a friendship level. So it definitely has its perks. I don't have as many like I don't want to say bad friends, but I don't run into a lot of people who are just like on bad energy. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's like a blind thing, but usually people are just like very nice and helpful. So I would say like that's been a positive.
Okay. I will say I can definitely understand where you're coming from on that, because when you can see, a lot of people go off mannerisms and body language, but when you have vision loss, it's kind of like, a twofold sword, because you got to go off of what you hear and taking people at face value, and then you got to go off of your feelings of how people are interacting with you and if their actions meet their words, type of thing.
Exactly.
See, so, okay. Well, all right. On another positive note, what do you feel was the most helpful thing that you got from Criss Cole?
Okay, so I'm not gonna go into the bad yet, because there's definitely some something going on with my mobility trainer, but honestly, mobility, like knowing how to use my cane, was such a huge thing that I took away from Criss Cole. Like, even just being confident using it, because like when I first went blind, I didn't even want to use a cane. I was so dependent on having someone guide me, and learning how to use my cane and just building up that confidence really led me to be independent. And it feels good that I don't have to depend on others to do anything. Like, I went to the doctor maybe like a couple of weeks ago, and the lady was like, "Oh, you came here by yourself? You don't have anybody with you?" I said, "No. Why do I need somebody with me?" And it felt good to be able to do things like that still, even though I'm away from Criss Cole. So I would definitely say that that's a big positive I've taken away.
Okay. Well, I like that. I say kudos to you for keeping up that independence. Now, the reason why I wanted to touch on the good is because a lot of times with interviews like this, a lot of people accuse people of saying, "Oh, well, you talked about all the bad and you didn't shine light on the good." So let's talk about the let's talk about the not so positive, because as you know, in the blind community, just like in life, everything's not sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
So, okay, let's talk about, and I want you to give me your best, um, truthful, honest opinion as a blind black woman in the blind community. So you could talk about some things that maybe I or my uncle have touched on as far as the climate, or some things about Criss Cole that you experienced from a woman's perspective.
Okay.
So let's talk about the bad. Let's talk
Right.
about, what would you say is some things that you went through that were not so positive at Criss Cole?
Ooh, unfortunately, I have a little list, but there's definitely some prejudicial and discrimination towards Black students that attend Criss Cole. It wasn't prevalent at first, but I did, hear about it from other Black students. So, I was on guard, and I'm like, okay. There wasn't too much at first, but the more I was at Criss Cole, the more it presented itself. As far as like not getting certain resources, like the what was it called? There was a work program. I'm drawing blank. You can tell it's been a minute because I'm drawing blank on all the things.
Are you talking about a work quest?
Yes, the work quest. Yes. So my plan was always to go back to school. That was the initial plan. But in the meantime, I wanted to do work quest because I wasn't working anymore. So that had negatively impacted my living situation. I asked to, be a resident student, but because I had an Austin address, they would not allow me. Although I was having hardship, like I wasn't receiving disability or short-term disability or anything at that point. I had like a couple of months of PTO from my job, and that's what I used to stay afloat for a little bit. But as far as getting any aid or assistance from Criss Cole regarding my living situation, there was absolutely nothing. And the way Criss Cole is set up, you have to be there 8 to 5. So I couldn't just go get a job because I'm blind. I need the skills to figure out, how to get back into the workforce. But it takes up so much of my time that I couldn't even get a job if I wanted to. So I'm telling my counselor all this, and she's like, oh, well, we have something coming up that I think you would really benefit from. I don't know what that was. And nothing ever came up, for me at least, that was supposed to be helping me with my situation. So that was just really difficult. And then I was also dealing with some health issues at the same time. And there was a lot of pressure to beat the curriculum, like making sure I passed the test and all the technology classes, which I understand, they have to continue to have a standard when it comes to taking tests and having students in the classroom. But there was just really no grace. And then there were pockets of information that I missed that I didn't get to go back over. I didn't get to go back over, or there wasn't an opportunity for my counselor to say, hey, I know you missed this week because you were in the hospital. Is there something we can do to make sure you get caught up on the information? It was just like, nope, you need to go ahead and take the test and do your best, and hopefully you'll pass, if we can move you along. It was like the focus was just moving me along. It wasn't actually making sure that I got the information. Because now that I'm in school, some of those pockets of information I could have really looked out on, like using Word and PowerPoint. In Excel, I I was battling so many different things between my health and my living situation that there was just no compassion or grace given. Going back to the work quest. So, school was always a goal, but I had a job lined up, and this was going to be a beautiful job. I was so excited. I think I would have been making about $50K a year. Like, it had good benefits, everything, but it was very competitive. There was over like 200 people who applied for the job. I made it down to the top 3, but I did not end up getting the job. And so at this point, I'm shifting gears. I'm talking to my career guidance teacher. I'm like, okay, the job didn't happen. That's all right. But let's, shift gears and work on the work quest. There was so much, what word do I want to use? Ambiguity. Like, when it came to the work quest, and I was told so many lies that it was just ridiculous. I think I requested the work quest like in January. I was supposed to graduate in March, which that was being rushed also. But I'm not gonna throw his name out there, but there was a white student who was literally in the same boat, applying to school, got into school. I had applied to school, got into school. And he was able to get the work quest. He was going to the work quest and everything. But when it came to me getting my work quest, there were so many things blocking it. I'm going to Miss Deanna Carter, my counselor. She's like, oh, well, you need to talk to your TWC counselor. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. The work quest is through you. I already had a company through my previous employer that was willing to be the host. So all that had to be done was the paperwork. Literally, paperwork just needed to be signed. She was ready to hire me on, and we were ready to go. But they were like, I don't want to use that word. They were really just like holding back on the work quest, and I just didn't understand. I was pushing, and I even had other students like, you really need to push for the work quest. You really need to push. And I was pushing as much as I could. I'm emailing my counselor, but I'm realizing that just emailing her by myself, I'm not getting a response. So I started to CC other administrative staff on the email just to get a response about the work quest or about anything that I needed. And it just, and then, I'm going to save that part for last. I'm going to save the graduation for last, because that really hurt my feelings, how the graduation played out. But I'm going to leave that there, because there's a lot to probably unpack with that.
Okay. And what I would like you to do is, and this is very important for the people who are going to listen to this, other students or other blind people that may have never even, may never even met, or people that are considering going to a blind rehabilitation center, may be considered going to Criss Cole or other ones. I would say, because you named your counselor Deanna Carter, who was your career guidance instructor?
David, what was his last name? He had a wife who also worked there too.
Are you talking about David Armstrong?
David Armstrong, yep.
And his wife's name is Megan Armstrong, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say, well, were you informed? Because as far as I know, it's from what I have on record, as far as they had 2, because I just want to make sure all this is lining up, because you said you know, when you go to career guidance, you know, the biggest focus, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, the biggest focus in career guidance is supposed to be either to get you to go to school or go to work. Am I right?
That's right.
Or both. Am I right?
Right.
Okay. And from what I have witnessed myself, seen or experienced, I know that they have two things, and this information is varied, but between who they want to get it or not. But I know that at Criss Cole, unless they have changed things recently, I know when I was there and you were there that they had what they would call a volunteer experience and a work quest experience. Am I correct? And from what I understand, you could do both, and both could be up to 12 weeks each. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So with touching on that, I would like to say, did they inform you of both of these? And when you said that you found your work quest, did anyone help you with that, or is that something you had to do on your own?
I did not know about both. I only knew about the work quest. I didn't know about the volunteer experience. And so, like, the original goal for me was, yes, go to school. But school wasn't going to start until August. And so I'm talking to David and I'm letting him know my plan. You know, after I didn't get the job, I'm like, okay, shifting gears, let's do a work quest. I believe I have a couple of people I can reach out to. It was, I was pretty proactive and motivated and determined on my end, but he kind of let me do that by myself. There really wasn't much help on his end in regards to finding a host company to do the work quest through. And then once I did find the lady that was going to allow me to do the work quest, everything was lined up. David had sent the email to introduce and explain to her what the work quest was, and she was just waiting on the paperwork to get sent. Never got sent. This was probably like at the end of January. I was just confused on like, what is the holdup? And then I was told that I had to choose between going to school or going to work and doing the work quest. And I was like, well, how is that so when we literally have a student who is currently doing both, who's currently going to ACC and was working at, I think it's called the Thinkery. And I was just like, this is some BS. Like, I've worked hard. I put in good recommendations. I did all the work that I needed to do on my end, you know, and it was just like, no, we're not going for it. Thank you. We're not going to allow you to do that because you need to pick between one or the other. You're not going to do both. And I was just like, oh, wow. At that point, I was just so fed up. I was ready to get out of there. I couldn't even handle it no more. You know, I was like, okay, we're going to do the 12 weeks with the work quest. It was going to fall in line perfectly for me to get ready to go to school in August. But no, they did not allow me to do that at all.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm definitely sorry to hear that. But with the whole thing about choosing, did they also inform you of your rights as a blind student, as far as, I think it's called the CAP program. It's called the Client Assistance Program, where if you and your counselor are not seeing eye to eye and things like that, where you can reach out to somebody to represent you when you go to your, what they call PTM meetings and stuff, when you're communicating with these higher ups like Julie Johnson or Trey Shaw. And, you know, you got all your people. For those who don't know what a PTM is, you know, this is when all your instructors and people like that, and your Julie Johnsons, the people that are running the center, are in your meetings and they're giving you progress reports. So I'm sure that you had some PTMs in there. And was any of this stuff brought up?
No, I didn't even know there was a such thing as the CAP program. that would have been helpful, especially towards the end, how chaotic it got. And, you know, just advocating for myself. Like, it just felt like I was not being heard, and I really had to fight and push, and it was kind of done in vain, you know. That would have really been helpful if I would have known I could have used that.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, see, and really, what that whole situation is, I would say that is very important since that's a government building. I was informed by another government employee that those brochures are supposed to be throughout the building, and they're supposed to be in the accessible format. That's something they should actually give you your first day at Criss Cole to let you know your options. But I would also like to add, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with the career guidance. When you go into career guidance, am I correct when I say that they want to get you out of things like industrial arts, IA, as quickly as possible to get you into career guidance? Would that be fair?
Oh, yeah. Like, I couldn't get into career guidance until I was done with IA.
Do you feel like you were rushed to go into career guidance?
Yes. Oh. I feel like I was rushed in the sense of, like, my other technology classes. Like, I think I needed to retake some of my other technology classes because of the time that I missed due to my health. And it was just kind of like, no, you're ready. You can handle it. And it was just like no concern for the amount of stress that I had to deal with, just to keep up and, you know, maintain my health. And it was just kind of rushed. Yeah, in regards to the technology classes.
Okay. Did you have, I'm not sure who your technology instructors were, but did you have any opportunity to talk to these people and say, hey, pull them aside and let them know your situation to see if, you know?
Right. Yes, for the most part. You know, it was like I was able to get done what I needed to get done to pass the class. But as far as like retaining information and actually learning, that was kind of just like pushed to the side. It was more about, well, we have this deadline on this day and we can't switch the deadline. You just got to be ready to take the test. It's kind of what was the theme across the board. You know, like every teacher I had was definitely like understanding, but there was really no wiggle room when it came to meeting the deadline, because the new class would start and they had to be on track for the new class, which I understood, but it failed me as far as retaining the information. It was more just like, okay, let's just make sure you know what you need to know to get enough to pass the class.
I completely understand. Now, I just want to clarify this, you know, because, you know, sometimes people will say student error. It's student error, and it's not the instructor. So were you taking notes? Were you doing the recording of the class? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That was
the only way I was able to pass.
Because I know they'll be like, oh, well, we had, there for a short while, they'll say, well, we had tech lab or this or that, you know. So, I
definitely went to tech lab, you know. Even met with a couple of my teachers after hours and was like, look, I'm not getting this. Can we go over this? And that definitely helped too. But I think in some instances it was like their hands were tied on being flexible with the dates, and just granting me more time. It was like they were like, that's not really much we could do besides trying to meet after class or you even coming in during another class and getting the information like that. So, you know, they tried to be creative as much as they could to help me out, but you can definitely tell it was more of a higher up thing where they couldn't be flexible.
Okay. And why do you think that, in your opinion, why do you think that is, from the vibe that you got and from what you witnessed? And I would say, to clarify, you know, with what you said before, as far as you feel like there was some kind of distortion, discrimination from black students and other ethnicity students from what you've experienced. Why would you say that is? Do you feel like?
'Cause, you know, I even went to my counselor. You know, I told her everything that I was dealing with. I'm like, look, I'm about to be displaced. You know, like, yeah, I have this Austin address, but I'm about to be put out of my own apartment and have to decide between living with my mom and my aunt and figuring out how I'm going to get back and forth to school, or to Criss Cole, I should say. And, you know, this is a lot to handle on top of me being in and out the hospital due to my own health issues, and then trying to maintain the schedule of the classes. It was just like she just didn't have any solution. You know, it was just like, who are you? Figure it out. You know, like I was like, there's no type of assistance you can provide. Like, I can't retake the class. And their whole thing was, okay, now I'm remembering. The only thing that she provided was, you can stop your program for 30 days. And other than that, you would have to basically start all over. And you would have to reapply and all these things, and hopefully you'll get back into Criss Cole. But if you pause for more than 30 days, you'll have to be withdrawn from Criss Cole. And I was just like, but I need the skills. I need the skills to be able to function and thrive. So it was just, okay, let me get back to the question. Like, when I went to my counselor about possibly retaking some of the classes, it was just like that was an option. They didn't want to prolong my time there further. They had a due date for when they wanted me to graduate, and they were being sticklers about sticking to that date. And I was just like, wow, okay. All right.
And when you say the date that they had planned for you to graduate, was that what the date was, what was previously discussed when you arrived at Criss Cole?
No. When I arrived, I didn't know how long I was going to be there. My graduation wasn't even talked about. You know, the only thing that was talked about was, you know, generally students do 6 to 9 months. That was really it. But I think once career guidance came into place, they were sticking to, I graduated in March 2025. And they were like, it's going to be March 2025 no matter what. And I was just like, that December, I think I missed almost the whole month due to being in the hospital. And I think I only did like a few days. And I was like, I definitely need to extend my time here, but they were not really trying to hear that at all.
And when you say that, I'm sure you have medical proof and doctor's notes and the hospital visits, you know. With that being said, did you know of anybody that was going through a similar situation like you, of other ethnicity, that, let's just say, Did you know of anybody of any other race that actually lived in Austin that was able to be a residential student at Criss Cole?
Mm, yes. Oh, I can't remember her name. Um, but I believe she was a Latina student.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I had asked, because I was told that she was able to do it. Oh, and actually, now that I think about it, there was another student. Angie. She was a white student, older white lady. She lived in Austin and was able to become a resident student. And so, I had thought that I was going to be able to as well. Diana shut that down so quick, and I asked early on too. That was a crazy thing. I asked early on before things, became detrimental for me, because I kind of was already seeing the writing on the wall of what my situation was going to turn into, and so I asked maybe my first or second week being at Criss Cole if I could be a resident student, and she was like, no. there wasn't even really a discussion. It was just like, no, because you live in Austin already, so you have to be a day student. And I was just like, oh, okay, wow.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know of anybody that was going through medical issues that actually exceeded that 30 days and still was able to continue their program?
Mm.
Or let's bring this up, because I know of some people or that you've seen or witnessed that, hey, you know what, I just don't feel like going to class and I'm going to take a personal day, or they don't feel like going, or they're on vacation or something crazy like that. Or, did you know of any people like that?
I definitely heard rumors about that happening with the Latino students, the Latino male students, but I wasn't too sure, but I definitely heard about a couple of Latino male students who, if they didn't feel like going to class, they didn't have to, and were actually able to leave and come back. Oh, and actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if she's Latino or Caucasian, but I believe she had a lot of mental and medical issues going on, and even had some assault, sexual harassment stuff going on with other students during her time there at Criss Cole, and she was able to come back and leave and come back and leave and come back. I don't know all the degrees to her situation or what all she had going on, but I definitely noticed that with her as well.
Okay. And I would say you touched on something that was very important. Let's talk about being a blind woman at Criss Cole in this environment. Let's talk about, because a lot of people would say that, I know it wasn't for very long at Criss Cole where they came up with this Title IX department. And based on my knowledge of a lot of people, of a lot of women there and guys, they didn't even know what the Title IX department was, office was, or or the person that was over the Title IX, Aaron. But I would say, for you as a woman, a blind woman, what is some of the negative aspects that you faced at Criss Cole that you perceive as a woman that you went through?
I want to touch on 2 points. The first point was I definitely experienced some sexual harassment while I was there through my mobility trainer, Winfred Hayes. He was just, there were so many degrading, derogatory comments that he would make about women. And even towards me, that was just very inappropriate. And then, like, secondly, I kind of wanted to touch on the mental health piece as a student at Criss Cole as well. They did have one counselor, but that counselor was seeing everyone that attended, and there just needed to be more. There needed to be more counselors for blind people in general. I'm like, it's such a heavy thing to deal with vision loss and going blind, whether, you know, you were blind from birth or it was something that happened later in life. I know some students were able to get in with the mental health counselor, but there was just not, it was very limited. And I wanted to, you know, have that experience of having therapy while I was at Criss Cole, but it just was not readily accessible. But going back to the sexual harassment that I experienced, there was me and a few other female students who experienced some sexual misconduct from Winfred Haynes. And it was just like, he had a reputation. He had a reputation from other students that I would meet traveling on the metro. They were like, yeah, you know, he's known for grabbing students' breasts. And I was just like, what? And the comment he made towards me one day when we were down in the gym area, because I was interested in working out, you know. He was like an Olympic track gold medalist, and I ran track in high school, well, elementary, middle school, high school. And so, you know, I was wanting to get back in shape. And, you know, we were down there, and he's kind of like behind me, and we're going over like certain workouts and stuff. And his comment was, well, you have a great hiney. And I was just like, oh, didn't know you could see that, one. But I just kind of got speechless. I didn't even know what to say. But it made me feel very uncomfortable. And there were other comments he would make as well. Like, when we were traveling on the bus, he was like, he likes getting on the bus in the evening time after classes is out and everything, because the bus would be kind of crowded, and he could kind of push up on women. Like the bus would be so crowded that you're kind of real close, and he could feel on like the back of women. And I was like, oh, okay. And, you know, I would ask certain questions, and he would always talk about his son. And, you know, he was proud about his son and everything else. And I didn't get too personal, but I asked him about, does he have any other kids? And he was like, yeah, I have a daughter, but their relationship is not good. And I was like, that's interesting. You know, given the nature of your personality. There was another instance where we were going on a trip to Walmart. And he was needing to buy something from Walmart. And the employee mistaken us as a married couple. I had my blindfold on, and I think it was cold, so I had like my hood on my head, so she really couldn't, I guess, see all my features like that. But he got real like amped up and excited about her mistaking us as a married couple. And I was like, no, he's my teacher. And he was just like, I can't believe she mistaken us as a married couple. Like, wow. And he was like, it sure would be great to have you. No, yeah, it sure would be great to have you as a young wife. And I was just like, I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, yeah, well, when I see you as my grandpa, And it was just like little things like that. Like it was just these weird comments that he would just get a lot of kick out of. And then, I've heard other female students, tell me their stories, which were very similar. Like another example is, I don't know if they were accidental. I don't think they were accidental. But, I can't say one way or another, because it happens. But he would run into the back of me a lot. And I'm like, for you to be a stickler about technique, Winford was very tough when it came to technique and how you're using your cane and all these things. And so when he would run into the back of me, I'm like, okay, is this being done on purpose? Or are you trying to just get a quick feel? But yeah, those were mainly my experiences when it came to Winford. And it was just like very uncomfortable.
I would say for the people that are listening or that will listen to this, if you don't know who Winford Haynes is, you can definitely put it in Google. He is, I believe Winford Haynes was the first black man to win a gold medal in the Paralympics for his, was the track. I forgot what he ran or something like that. But the reason why I bring that up, and if you don't know the difference between the Paralympics and the Special Olympics is for people who have intellectual disabilities, and Paralympics is for people who have physical disabilities. And the reason why I want to bring this up is, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, Zoe, but Winford Haynes at Criss Cole is what they would call a quote-unquote celebrity in the blind community. And these people revere Winford and think he can do no wrong. So when we get to this part of the interview, some people may turn it off because they don't want to hear it. But I know for certain things were told to me by certain staff members that they have seen things from security guards and other staff that they have seen or felt uncomfortable around Winford. Me personally, I even heard something about, this whole keeping your hand like this to your booty touching hand. He was something of that nature, So, but I would say that most people in the blind community, or at Criss Cole some people would rather turn a blind eye, because when you said he intentionally, or you don't know if it was on purpose, that he runs into the back, he's ran into the back of you or any other female student, and you mentioned something. Now they call Winford at Criss Cole the blind ninja. And you do not get a nickname like that being sloppy with your cane. And Winford is a person, I've never seen this a day in my life until I met Winford. He's a person that he might tap his cane once, but he has this thing where his cane floats about an inch off the ground.
Yes.
And you're not going to find him if if he doesn't want to be found, you're not going to find him. He's very silent in that way in traveling. And I know he teaches that techniques to his students, rather. So I'm just saying that that will bring up a lot of questions on a person that has been, now he is an O&M instructor, very seasoned instructor at Criss Cole. So I would say if you've went to school to be an O&M instructor, you've been trained in many different aspects. I do think that is very odd.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say this too. Another thing, some people may ask, with female students and things of that nature that have had these complaints. I know I've talked to some, and I've always urged people to speak up. I know
Mm-hmm.
in other students, but some people would say, "Well, when it happened, did you tell anybody? Did you tell your counselor, or
Mm-hmm.
why are you saying something now?" Some people may say, because you may have those detractors like, "Oh, well, if all this was going on, then they may say, why now, of all
Mm-hmm.
times?" What would you say to that?
Um. Well, first thing is, when it comes to African American and some of the female students were Latino or Latina, um, it is unfortunately embedded in our culture to get shut down when you speak up. And so there were many, like for my situation, I was told that this has been going on with Winthrop and nothing has been done. There's been reports and allegations that come out, and he's still working here. you know? And so, as a woman who goes through something like that, as far as sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, is very discouraging. And speaking about an experience like that can be very embarrassing and humiliating. And it's like, you should want to speak up for yourself and get justice. But at the same time, when you don't have that support, and when you're being told nothing's going to get done, or there's been a history of nothing getting done, it makes you feel like, okay, well, what I have to say isn't going to change anything. And, I did end up eventually speaking up. I reached out to, I can't remember her name, but I believe it was a Title IX person, after my time at Criss Cole. And I told her everything that I discussed today. And, she wanted definitive timelines or timelines as far as like the exact dates that things happened. And I couldn't give her an exact date, so I don't know what was done with those reports. I didn't follow up on it or anything. I just wanted to move past it. But I did give her the time frame that those situations happened in. And then once I did that, and once I talked to other female students who were going through the same thing, that also kind of helped me build up the courage to say something. But there is a culture when it comes to that where it's, oh, you're overreacting. It wasn't that serious. He didn't mean it like that. I think those were some of the like deterrents that kept me from speaking up sooner. But yeah, I definitely did eventually. And then I even had a male student who was very supportive, Anthony Chase. And, advocating and speaking up for myself and helping me not feel alone in that. And, not telling me other students' information, but letting me know that there were other female students who were going through the same things. And that kind of helped me, like, oh, no, we definitely have to do something. Like, there's more than one person this is happening to. So I would say having that support of not doing it alone helps, a woman who's going through something like that speak up.
I would shout out Mr. Anthony Chase. That's my brother from another mother, so I appreciate that, him urging you to speak up. And I remember in my time at Criss Cole, I met 3 young ladies that told me something very disturbing, and I think I mentioned it before. on my Surviving Criss Cole story, but
Mm.
they said something that, you know, when situations happen to them, one thing that they were told was, don't act like a whore, don't dress like a whore, and
Mm.
these things won't happen. So I think that's very disturbing, especially
Yeah.
in the state government building that is funded by people, you know,
Mm.
by these. We're in Texas, so it's funded by these Texans, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's very, I think that's victim blaming, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
when you say, hey, well, you dress like this, you were acting like this, so you know, some people would say
Right.
that they had this coming, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely not fair to say. I don't think anybody, no matter how they dress or you know how they may be acting, that they're asking to be harassed in any fashion. Um,
Exactly.
but correct me if I'm wrong. As of your knowledge, there are cameras in all these common areas inside and outside of CCRC, Criss Cole Rehabilitation Center for the Blind. Am I correct?
Right. As far as I know.
And if I'm correct, there are two armed security guards that are watching these cameras, one at the residential and one at the front entrance of the building. Am I correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, would it be fair to say to a rational individual, would it be fair to say at the, let's just say, I know you can't remember the date, but let's just say there there are security guards that are watching this footage and people at the front desk at the residential desk that are watching these cameras, and
Mm-hmm.
say in the gym, for example, I know there are cameras down there. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just say to a rational individual that is watching these cameras at this particular time that, hey, and they have audio from what I understand,
Mm.
that they're high tech, you know, they got video and audio cameras. So if somebody was to say, hear this and not mention it to somebody or their higher up boss, don't you think that is what would Anthony Chase say, a abdication of their duties?
Right. Yeah. It definitely shows, they're being complicit. Um, and they know what's going on, and like you said earlier, turning a blind eye to it. Back up. Um, um, but yeah, they're turning a blind eye to it and allowing the behavior to go on. Because although I didn't have this specific date, I definitely had the month. So if they wanted to, they could have went back and checked the cameras. I don't know how long they keep their footage, but they could have ran the cameras back and seen when Winfred and I was down there, because it was only a handful of times. It was, I think, only maybe 3 occasions that we went down there together. So, like I said, I don't know what came of my report or anything, but hopefully something was done. I don't know if he's still working there or not, but
Yes.
he don't need to be.
Okay. And I would say, with that being said, would you say there are people that know or heard? I'm just saying, because we're former students and students talk just like staff talks. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
there's people that have heard or suspect or know that his behavior is of that?
Oh yeah. Excuse me, sorry. Um, Towards the end of my time at Criss Cole, Winford wasn't allowed to go on independent mission. What they call missions? I don't feel like missions. um, but I'm gonna use mission. He wasn't allowed to go on independent missions anymore with female students. He had to have what is his name? There was another black teacher. He worked in tech. And he was a newer teacher. I cannot remember his name. But he would accompany him on the independent lessons. towards the end of my time at Criss Cole, maybe like that last month, and I was told that was being done because they knew there were reports and allegations coming out against Winford, and they were trying to keep an eye on him. And I'm just like, this is the solution to students being, coming up and speaking out about what's being done to them, and this is what y'all think is going to help. Okay, I guess. But you can definitely tell other staff knew something.
Well, I think that is a head scratcher there, because if you ask me, a rational individual, a black man, and there is probably, if any other business in the world where a female comes up and says, "Hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable or sexually harassed to some degree," they're going to try to rectify the situation by removing either the person that's making them feel that way, suspending, firing, or a deep dive investigation to see if anybody else has had that. And I've heard that Winford has had other female students been accompanying them into the gym as well. So I'm sure that there's some things of that nature. So I would say I'm kind of curious about that solution as well. But I think with that being said, I think there probably should be a deep dive investigation into Criss Cole and their, number one, hiring practices.
Yeah.
And number two, their disciplinary actions when these things are coming up, because I think the public definitely needs to know what their money is going to. And if these things keep happening, then who's to say that maybe something worse has happened? Because we all know things start verbal, end up physical.
Right.
And I don't think anybody should be in those kind of uncomfortable positions.
Not to just bash the guy or whatever, but I was told that, I was his student for about 9 months, so there are different things that were told to me out of his mouth. And, he told me he was married 3 times. And I was told that his last wife was actually a student. And I was like, oh, wow. So there was definitely patterns, I would say, of this going on. And then, like I said, I would meet other students on the Metro bus, and they would tell me, like, they were a student at Criss Cole 5, 6, 7 years ago, and Winford had this reputation. So this has been going on for years. And it's just kind of sad, that it's gone on so long. So, yeah, like you're saying, there's definitely probably some stories that were a lot worse that we don't even know about, and nothing has been done about it.
Facts. So let's go to because I know you said the mental health of a blind person at Criss Cole is very important, or maybe sometimes overlooked. I think the counselor's name that I've heard good things about, mental health counselor, like Emily Schultz, I believe her name is. So you said you weren't able to get in there. Was there any other remedies to that? Did anybody ever, like a counselor, instructor, did you have any other outlets for mental health?
Besides going out with the students that I was able to come close to, no. I was never offered by my counselor, Diana, but I'm in school for counseling myself right now. And, just everything that I've had to experience going through vision loss and blindness, I'm like, I don't know why Criss Cole isn't filled with mental health counselors. Like, it should be an automatic assignment, for students to have a counselor. And then if you want to opt out, you can opt out. But there's so much ambiguous grief that comes with blindness, and depression and anxiety, and just the different things that you have to do at Criss Cole, like going out on the lessons, on the O&M lessons, that can be a lot for someone. That can really mess with someone's anxiety. Someone can have a traumatic experience on an O&M lesson. Like, I remember I got pushed by some lady, and not just like a little nudge. No, she pushed the hell out of me. And I had my blindfold on, and I was just like, okay, can I debrief with someone about this? Like, can I talk to a counselor? That I'm feeling a little bit anxious and nervous about going back on O&M because, my physical safety, and there was no remedy for that, or even just how the pace that you have to be on when you're at Criss Cole is kind of looked down upon if you need more time. And that pressure can, lead to different feelings of, lack of self-worth or depression. And there's, like I said, it was very limited. I know some students were able to get in there, but it wasn't accessible to me. And I know not everyone had the opportunity to meet with the counselor or therapist. But I think that's something that needs to be heavily pushed at Criss Cole.
Would it be fair to say, do you think, because I know there's some people that got to see the counselor, the therapist, would you say, do you believe any of those sessions may have been used against any of the people that you may know? Like, I know it's especially in our community, I would say in the Black community, I would say it's already frowned upon to go to therapy already,
Right.
because we only think crazy people go to therapy, right?
Right.
And so when you have to lower your shield that you're putting up all the time and going to therapy, and you're trying to confide in someone, do you feel like some of those confessions could be used against those students?
I think so, and I say that because, from my knowledge, and if, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, there was only one counselor. So I feel like there could be bias that happens when you have 30, 40 students at, a facility, and you're hearing different sides of similar stories or whatever the case may be. There's definitely can be bias that happen, and I don't know, that just, having one counselor for about 30, 40 people, that doesn't seem ethical to me. We're paying all these tax dollars, or the Texas people are paying all these tax dollars, and there's not an ethical standard being upheld for people who are needing mental health counseling. And it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me that, y'all are receiving all this money and you can only afford one therapist.
And when I asked that I've heard rave reviews about Miss Emily Schultz, and I've heard that she's helped a lot of people, but the reason why I asked that is because, I'm sure these counselors like your Deanna Carters or your Jeff Malzos or, whoever the other Blue Feather or whoever other counselors may be privy to these, the information. I'm just saying that. So not saying that the therapist, but I'm just saying maybe maybe a counselor or something like that that's over a certain segment of students could be like, hey, well, this could be a red flag, or this is something to pull a thread on or something like that. But what I would say next is the next question I would have for you is, I know you said you wanted to warn people. So if you were talking to someone that was considering going to Criss Cole or another rehabilitation center for the blind across the country, what are some things that you want to warn them about or inform them about?
I take this from you, this advice from you and your uncle. And I wish I would have done it more, or I would have done it sooner. But record every meeting that you have with your counselor, that you have with any administrative staff. Make sure you record everything. For me personally, I did a lot of things in writing through email, so I had that as a record. Make sure you have all of those things set in place, especially if you are an African American person. Unfortunately, we have to be a little bit more prepared to advocate for ourselves and speak up for ourselves. That's definitely a tactic that I would recommend people do. If you can, try to have some type of administrator on your side. Like the CAP program, I didn't know that was a thing. Definitely find out about the CAP program as soon as possible, because you may need it. Make sure they are familiar with who you are and all of that. Have fun. It is a fun experience as far as engaging with the students and some of the teachers. But I would, if you're an African American student, things may not be fair. You may see your other counterparts receive certain resources and even receive praise and acknowledgement that doesn't happen for you. Like this was the last thing I wanted to bring up at my graduation. The white male student, and there was a female Latina student that graduated at the same time as me. And, when they were spoken about, Diana Carter sung their praises. All the degrees they had, all the accomplishments they did while they were at Criss Cole, everything. And then when it came to me, it was not like that at all. My mom had the video for the longest, but she ended up breaking her phone and ended up losing the video. But she recorded the whole thing. And the way Diana Carter talked about me was just like, I haven't done anything for myself. She didn't speak about my degree that I have in criminal justice. I have a minor degree in political science. She didn't talk about the work that I've done while I was at Criss Cole. She didn't even mention what I was going to school for. But all of those things were mentioned and acknowledged with the other two students. So it felt like a big slap in the face. And looking back, I should have snatched that mic from my hand. That's how I feel, at least. I should have snatched that mic up out her hand and talked about my own accomplishments myself. But I kept it classy, kept it elegant. But those are some of the things to watch out for. It's definitely, you got to work harder if you're Black, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I would say I have, my graduation ceremony as well was, I feel the same, I guess, I feel the same way because when I graduated, it was kind of the same thing. Everybody had praise to say, about these other students.
Mm-hmm.
They're great. The sun shines on them.
Mm-hmm.
And our next graduate, Terry Thomas, here you go. Here's your keys. Here's your keychain for this keychain. You know, none of the things that they said for the other people, but
Yeah.
here is a keychain that they claim that can open the doors to your future, but it don't got no keys on it. It don't have nothing, because I feel like, and I'll ask you this question. I feel like, for me myself, I felt like I didn't get any of the praise
Mm-hmm.
that my other student counterparts got, because I was pushing back and standing up not only for myself but my fellow classmates,
Right.
and that I wasn't gonna just sit passively by where other people were getting done wrong,
Right.
and my uncle as well. So I feel like with yourself doing an interview like this or speaking about this, how do you feel about the label, or some people that claim that they, revere you
Mm.
and look at you as a positive person, but when you start speaking on your real life experience, how do you feel when they say, "Oh, you shouldn't have said that," or
Mm-hmm.
"You shouldn't speak on that"? That makes the blind community look bad. What would you say about that?
I'm like, well, how are we ever going to make improvements if we're not talking about the things that need to be improved? You know, um, I'm a huge advocate across the board. You know, when it comes to things that I've experienced, others experienced, and especially towards the end of my time at Criss Cole, I did a lot of pushback, and honestly, that might have been the reason why I didn't receive as much praise at my graduation. Um, I remember another student came to me and told me about Winford telling them, "Hey, you and your little Terry Thomas crew, you need to watch out for them." And honestly, everyone who was considered in Terry Thomas' crew were Black. So I just thought that was kind of interesting how that comment was made. But there was no comments being made about that towards other students of different ethnicities, that you need to be mindful and watch out, because they start up a lot of trouble. And I'm like, if you think that speaking up for yourself or speaking up for others is causing trouble, that's the person you need to watch out for. But yeah. I don't even know where I was going with that, but
Facts. I think what you're saying is right on point, and I guess we can, because I've taken up a lot of your time, but I would say, what would you say is something, because we've given a lot of good things and a lot of critiques, but what would you say are some things that the people at Criss Cole, if they listen to this, what would you say are some things, in your opinion, that you think could be improved on, and that would make Criss Cole or any other blind rehabilitation center across the country better?
Definitely having more mental health counselors. I was told Criss Cole used to do this. I don't know why they took it away, but when students would first come, there was a stipend that was given to help students be able to go out and engage on the different after-school, after-program activities. I think that needs to come back. I think there needs to be some type of department that's geared on helping people get their disability or short-term disability, or even explaining that whole process. That is a part of rehab. Like, okay, yes, we're trying to get back into the workforce, we're trying to get back into school, whatever the case may be, but people also have to be able to live, and not everybody has a support system. I didn't have a strong support system. So if there was some type of aid or assistance or just even guidance on filing for disability, filing for short-term disability, different government assistance that's out there that could help in the meantime while I'm at Criss Cole. If there could be some type of partner collaborations with housing while you're there, or some type of assistance with bills and things like that. If you can, show that, okay, you're going to Criss Cole every day from 8 to 5, it's 40 hours a week. Okay, we'll cover your bills for this amount of time, or whatever the case may be. There definitely needs to be a lot of more support. Even hearing from other students, that was a concern in that regard. Let's see. I don't know what needs to be done to change the discrimination that happens at Criss Cole. Maybe administrative change or just system change within the policies that are in place. But those are definitely some of the things that I would advocate that could be improved upon.
Okay. And I would, I forgot to ask you this. Would you say that, because I know they have self-esteem, a female self-esteem class where it was talking about reflections class for women to help them put on makeup and things of that nature. But I don't know if you went through that, or one thing I think should be focused on at Criss Cole is awareness for women and self-defense.
Yes.
I think that's something, because from a male perspective, one thing that I noticed at Criss Cole was I went out on a lot of recreation trips, but what I coined the phrase was O&M after hours, where I would me and some other students we would go out and we would try to show people around, especially if they first got there. But one thing I noticed going to like places like Brass Tap, a local bar close to the school, was you have some students, male students, and maybe some of these people have lived sheltered lives. Some of these girls have lived sheltered lives and might not been out in the real world that much. But you have a lot of, I would say, female students, especially when I was there, that either are naive or of their surroundings, or they haven't been warned about what predatory behavior looks like. I'm talking about, i.e., some guy, kind of coercing you into drinking a lot more, trying to unwanted touches, things of that nature, maybe, forcible kissing or things of that nature that I have seen and stood up against, I would say. I think there needs to be, and I think that's on the parents' perspective as well. I think for parents, and I'm thinking about doing a video about that, is because I think when most people think of people with disabilities, they automatically think mental, as opposed to really preparing. I know a lot of these people aren't kids. I know we got people from 18 or 17 all the way to 60, 80, 90 years old that go to Criss Cole, but a lot of people don't inform them about what's really out there. So that's
I agree with you.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the self-defense goes. I think they had 2 little self-defense classes while we were there, and it wasn't fruitful. I don't like if it was more it was like a big group of us, so the whole time was kind of trying to keep order of the self-defense class instead of actually teaching us techniques that we can use if someone grabs us, or our cane, or whatever the case may be. I think we learned like one little hand gesture but it wasn't like you got to perfect it or anything like that. I think for the male students too, actually. I think for students at Criss Cole, you just kind of got to be ready for whatever may come out there when you're going out into the world. And self-defense is something that should be a part of the things that they teach.
I do agree with that. And telling somebody I'm not comfortable with that is probably not gonna.
Exactly.
It's probably not gonna be the best solution to
Right.
an oncoming attacker. But yeah, with that being said, I want to thank you, Ms. Zoe, for this interview. I want to thank you for telling your story
Thank you.
and sharing your truth. Hopefully that lifted some weight off of your shoulders.
Yes. Thank you for providing the space.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And once I get everything taken care of, this will probably be up this coming week.
All right. Sounds good.
Well, I appreciate you, Zoe, and I will talk to you later.
All righty. Thank you so much, Terry.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
I am your gracious host, Terry Thomas, and this was another Surviving Criss Cole interview. Until next time, peace, love, and as I always say, these streets, you got to protect yourself. Thank you for all those supporters out there that are watching this video. Thank you for rocking with me. Put in the comments on what kind of video you want to see next. Until then, I'm Terry Thomas. This is MR.TerryTV. You have a beautiful and a blessed day.